All right, folks, Gennady Golovkin, Canelo Alvarez, September 16th, HBO pay-per-view, and Phantom Events. You can actually go out to a movie theater and watch this thing. You got two guys that are undefeated, and it will be a lot of action from the very beginning. Bernie Vukovic, again, it's great to have you here, and we're going to start off talking about Golovkin being a slight favorite. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. He's the naturally bigger fighter. His knockout record is a higher percentage than the other guy.
Right.
And Alvarez is moving up in weight to fight him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be a good big man versus a good little man. And I think the odds makers probably have it right that he's favored.
All right, now, Golovkin's never been knocked down as an amateur or a pro. You got an iron chin and he's easy to hit, but he loves to bait his opponents by taking punches so he can land a haymaker. Remember, he's got that very solid jaw, but Alvarez, a great counter puncher, and by going to the body and head over and over, he could wear him down. And even if he doesn't, a lot of folks think that Alvarez will win on points. Your analysis?
I don't see the fight going the distance. I think it'll be a knockout, later rounds, and I think Alvarez could be the one winning by knockout. Now, in order for him to hit Golovkin, he's going to have to move into Golovkin's range. And when he does that, he's going to have to make sure that he keeps moving while he's doing that. Golovkin can fight a fighter who moves. It's easy for him to do that. He's done that. But when you're moving, it's hard to sit down on your punches. In order to bring that power that he has, he's got to momentarily stop to set up to throw the heavy-duty punch. That's going to be tough for him to catch Alvarez if Alvarez is true to form, because he's always moving. He's a very slick body, or moves his body in a very slick way. He's a hard guy to hit, and he throws a terrific uppercut. That is Alvarez, and that we saw in the Kell Brook Golovkin fight. Golovkin got tagged with that uppercut numerous times. So I look for that to happen on the infighting. I think Alvarez is probably as good, if not a better boxer than Golovkin. So it's just going to be a matter of Alvarez staying out of range and not getting hit with the haymaker.
You know, one thing about Alvarez, we were talking about his movement, but what about his defense? Forget moving, his defense. Where do you rate his defense?
He's a top rate. He's underrated by many of the scribes. Why, I'm not real sure, because he's a hard guy to get a hold of. So I think his defense is underrated. I think he should be thought more highly of in regard to his defensive skills than what he is.
Gennady Golovkin, 37 fights, 33 by knockout. Can he knock you out with either hand, or is the right hand his strong?
The right hand is a strong hand. It's his dominant hand, but he can punch with both hands.
When you think about these two, and obviously he's the promoter, so he's got skin in the game, but, you know, Oscar De La Hoya thinks this is the greatest middleweight title fight of all time. Close?
Well,
I mean, you're a student of the game, so am I. I mean, you can go back to people like, you know, Zale and Graziano. I mean, there's a lot of great middleweights. Sugar Ray Robinson, Jake LaMotta. But, I mean, where do you rank this thing?
In terms of greatest fights?
Middleweight fights.
Well, it's probably the greatest middleweight fight of this quarter.
Okay.
I mean, I've heard that about every middleweight fight going back to the 50s and 60s.
But then there was another middleweight there for a long time by the name of Marvin Hagler, who had some pretty good fights too.
It wasn't so bad.
No.
And I saw an old Sugar Ray Robinson knock Gene Fullmer out, and nobody knocked Gene Fullmer out. So, you know, that was a great fight. You promote the fight by saying it's the greatest fight.
Right.
I think it would have been the biggest event in boxing this year had it not been for McGregor Mayweather.
I'm going to ask you about that in a minute, but this is from my heart. This is the greatest middleweight champion of all time. Who do you think I'm thinking about right now? This is my opinion. And Sugar Ray was great, Robinson, there's no doubt. But I always think of him as kind of a welterweight, middleweight, whatever. But it's a pure middleweight champion, great fighter, sad to say, no longer here. Carlos Monzon.
I think he held the middleweight title for 7 or 11 years, something like that. It was a long, long time. He was a great one.
He was.
I think he would be considered by many to be the greatest middleweight fighter if he'd have fought in a modern era. He fought at a time when many of his fights were not televised. He fought a lot in Argentina and other places where you just didn't get the coverage that you get today.
All right, let's go back now before we finish up. Bernie Vukovic, the fight professor. So Mayweather and McGregor, what'd you think?
I thought it was a good fight.
It was a good fight.
No, I thought it was a good fight. Everybody said it was going to be a mismatch. And after about 4 rounds, it kind of was. But let me tell you, McGregor, for a guy who could not use 2/3 of his skills in that fight, he showed me a tremendous amount of heart. I mean, he won the first 3 rounds, no question about it. Maybe the 4th round, touch and go. But he ran out of gas, as a lot of
Yeah,
people
but here's what I don't
expected him to
understand,
do.
and you can explain this better than me. You're much more knowledgeable about the sport, but how do you run out of gas when your sport is in an octagon, grappling, punching, kicking, moving constantly, as opposed to boxing where you can tie up, you can back away, you can lean on the ropes? And he looked to be in great condition. Why do you think he ran out of gas? You think a lot of it had to do with just the emotion of the moment, maybe?
It could. You know, once the adrenaline wears off, now you're back to being normal. And don't forget that he normally would fight 25 minutes or less.
That's right.
Okay? Because they fight 5 5s or 3 5s or whatever they fight, depending on whether it's a championship fight or not. And so, and look, he was moving an awful lot in that fight. He moved quite a bit.
And he had some, I think, good technique.
He did. When you miss punches, it takes more out of you than when you connect.
Does he fight again in the boxing ring?
If there's the right thing to promote, I'm sure he would. But any top level guy in that weight area can beat him as a boxer, in my opinion.
The epilogue on Floyd Mayweather, obviously we think of Floyd and Ray, but this Floyd is pretty hard to beat. I mean, this guy's never been beaten. Should it qualify against Marciano's 49-0 now that he's 50-0? And just how will boxing write about the history of Floyd Mayweather?
I think they should write about it positively. He won 50 fights without a loss. Was never really challenged except maybe early in his career. But no, to me it doesn't denigrate his achievement to compare him to Marciano. Now Marciano fought a few guys that weren't world-class fighters too. There were fellows like Roland Lastarza that he fought, and I could name you a few others.
Yeah, but he fought some good ones too, as did Charles Archie Moore.
He fought whoever was there.
Right.
Whoever was there.
And Joe
he
Louis
fought.
was past his prime,
Yeah.
obviously, right?
Yeah, well, that's the first fight, by the way, that I ever saw. That was October of 1951.
And I can see why Marciano cried after that fight, because that would have been hard for me to be a part of something like a chopping right hand, Gennady Golovkin, reminded me a lot of Rocky Marciano. So let's kind of end on this fight coming up. It's one definitely that we have been wanting to see for a long time, and it really is going to make whoever wins this, because Mayweather's gone, arguably the best fighter in the game right now, wouldn't you think? I know there's other guys out there that you love.
I love this Roman Chocolatito
I
Gonzalez.
won't let
We
that
talked
guy go.
about him. He's, I think, favored to win in his rematch against the Thailand kid. I think he's one of the great fighters in the modern era. It's hard. If you've seen Errol Spence fight, you saw a guy fight that probably today could give Mayweather all he would ask for.
Terrence Crawford, you still like him?
I still love him.
I know you do.
Yeah.
Bernie Vukovic, Rob Pratt. Tomorrow night we're back here with a woman who wants to be in Congress, Beth Tarazi. She'll be joining us at the club at Shadow Lakes. Have a great night, everybody.